Rakar Corvin. Sounds like a Star Wars name. When composing vocals for a song, do you write the lyrics first or focus on the melody? So I talked about it with screaming, but with singing, yes. Melody almost always comes first. Like with Between Sea and Sky, I was pacing around the room, and I was just like, la da da, ba da 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 da. And then the lyrics just kind of popped into my head. Come now, wind, take me to the planet's edge. And I had no idea how those lyrics were going to fit into the song at all. Like I did not, I was like, what's this song about? I don't know. Also, Planet's Edge. The song takes place like way, way, way in the past when they thought the earth was flat. I'm not saying the earth is flat. It's just the lyrics of the song. So, yes, melody and vocal patterns come first 99.9% of the time, and then lyrics come after. Great question. Which of the bands you've reacted to is your favorite and least? For Infinite Annihilator, please do. Yeah, Soil the Stillborn is probably what I'm going to cover. It's going to be a couple weeks, but that's what I'm thinking. So thankfully I haven't had to react to any bands that I didn't like. There are bands out there that I don't like, and I've always wondered that with these reaction videos. Like, what happens if somebody suggests a song and I'm just like, blech, blech, this is terrible? But that hasn't happened. I think that out of the bands that I've reacted to that I listen to actively in my free time the most, it would probably be Cattle Decapitation. Like, I'll pop that on when I'm driving around sometimes. Yeah. Neobla Viscaris as well. Of Petrichor Weaves Black Noise. I think that song is pretty fantastic. I listen to that a lot. So probably of the types of bands that I actively listen to outside of the reaction videos, those two. But I enjoy the deathcore stuff as well. I just don't seek that out as frequently as I do other genres. But great question. This is kind of the same question. Of the vocalists you've reacted to, who's been your favorite to react and review? Dickie Allen. Yeah. There's just so much going on with that guy. Like, so much to talk to. Sometimes you react, or, you want to break down some vocals, and there's a vocalist who, there's nothing wrong with this, but they have like one or two styles, and so you'll be looking doing some research about the band prior to doing the reaction, and you're like, what am I going to talk about here? But with Dickie Allen, like, he's doing something new every 5 seconds. So I feel like I had the most fun with that video specifically because I had so much to talk to. Yeah, that was a great one. Do you have any tips on how to use less air when doing false chords? Yes, I do. My tip would be, how do I explain this? Normally, this is the sort of thing that I would do actively with somebody in a lesson. Because the trick is to compress the airflow and not constrict the throat. So, like, if I was to do like a basic false chord, yeah, yeah, the only difference between that and this is that I'm making the space inside my throat smaller. And the way that I'm doing that is by making manipulations in the area around the false chords. And some people, they have a easy time figuring out how to do that by learning how to do throat singing, like that you hear in Mongolian stuff. That's a way to go about it. But I would say start with just the basic false chord low, like the old school, like death metal false chord low, and then slowly play around after you've warmed up and kind of loosened up and limbered up. Slowly play around with making minor adjustments in your throat and in your mouth to narrow that airway. But it's never going to come by tightening these outward muscles. That's just something to be aware of. Like when I do this, my muscles in my neck are very soft. So it's not from this. Doesn't happen here. But I would say honestly, like, unless you've got other vocal styles down, like, don't worry about that yet. But if you do have the basic false chord down, that's a good way to start. My questions. Oh, this you deserve everything and more. Thank you. Can you explain the Walrus scream? Tyler from Traders does. So I read this question before the video, and I think I know what you're talking about. If I know what you're talking about, it's kind of similar to Jim from Aegean, how he does his screams, and he kind of builds from a traditional false chord, yeah, yeah. And then what he does is he opens up the cavity while narrowing his mouth, and then doesn't completely take the chords out. That's, I mean, okay, when we talk about false chords, yes, your vocal folds aren't involved, but there are ways to use your vocal folds underneath your distortion. It's just tricky. And I don't advise anyone start there. So, that being said, I think it's built off of this. Yeah, yeah, and it kind of comes from there. Can you explain how to get your pitch higher? I'm assuming, I'm aiming for the whistle screams. Sorry, I can't help you with the whistle screams. I'm sorry. Not yet. I'm trying to figure it out. But just getting your normal highs higher. Imagine your distortion happening in your nose. Don't make your voice itself higher by raising your larynx. You don't want to talk in a falsetto, but just having a nasal tone to your voice and then screaming in that same position can help out a lot. And there's something some vocalists do that sounds like they're literally gurgling water. Can you give more insight on that, please? I'm gonna guess you're leaning into the slam realm of things. Here's if I know what you're talking about, that would involve a very slow and small airflow, with constricted airway around it. This might not be exactly what you're going for, but if I understand what you're saying, and it would be quiet, so you'd have to like lean into your mic, but something like something like that might be close. Maybe they're like letting their throat get a lot of spit and phlegm going on, which I would not suggest because you can choke, but maybe that's where the watery sound comes from. If that is, I don't condone it, but a lot of that comes from lower frequency of the rattle in the scream versus that's the direction I would go if I'm understanding your correction. Can you continue being amazing? Only as long as I've got you. I can't be amazing without you, so there it is. Do you have any advice on how to practice as someone who lives with people who really don't? So my fiance, she really does not like screamed vocals at all. She loves me though, and it's unlikely for me to be completely home alone. You know, hopefully you have people that understand your passions and desires, and you say, hey, listen, let me compromise. This is something I want to be good at, but I know you don't like it. Maybe we can work something out. I'll work on it for half an hour a day during these times, and that's just what we agree upon. And then outside of that half hour, I won't do it. I find that with anything in life, if you want to get, you have to be willing to give. And so saying to somebody like, hey, I understand you don't like this sound. I really want to pursue this, and I'm going to pursue it. So this is my proposal. Hopefully they would respond to that. If not, might have to just go to a park and hope nobody calls the cops on you. That would be my suggestion. Logan. Oh, yeah. I love that profile pic, dude. Did you start with metal vocals, or have you been in bands with more relaxed vocals? So I've only ever been in metal bands. That's it. I started out with Kardashev. Currently in Varamia, although Varamia is not... We did that single, and I know we're going to write more in the future, but we're kind of in between that right now. Yeah, that's all I've ever been in. I've thought it'd be cool to like have like kind of a folky or like Sufjan Stevens style side project where I'm just singing, but I ain't got time for that. So there's the answer to that question. Good one. Worst scenarios. Oh God, was there a band that made you want to do vocals? Yes, Job for a Cowboy. Absolutely. Back in the day, out here in Arizona, Job for a Cowboy was like the shit. They were from here. They were like doing this crazy stuff. And I listened to that and I was like, oh man, I got to do that. Entombment of a Machine specifically. That song blew my mind. You talk about safety with your voice with all types of vocals. Is it possible to be safe no matter the skill level? Let's piece this question apart. Is it possible to be safe no matter the skill level? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, beginners can be safe. People who've been doing vocals for 10 years can be safe. I don't think your skill level depends on whether or not you're safe. No matter the type of vocals, disagree. I do think that there are vocal styles out there that are not safe to do. Inhales being one of those examples. And if there is a safe way to do it, I just don't think it's worth it. So yeah, also like some of those hardcore bands out there where you can tell they're just yelling as hard as they can, like you can hear their neck muscles straining. And it's like, you know, if they don't hurt themselves, that's good. I don't want them to, but I would never do that. Yeah, looks like those are the 2 questions there. Thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate it. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Next question. What other rappers do you listen to besides in the same vein as Milo? Yeah, I will definitely check out his group Ruby Yacht. Didn't know he had that. So I don't listen to a lot of rap. I do the songs that I like really well, and I have a lot of respect for the genre, but I don't really follow it. Milo, as I've mentioned, is definitely my favorite. Just not only because of his flow, but I think his lyrics are the best I've encountered. Joyner Lucas has some songs that I really like. Yeah. Also, I kind of get into like the Suicide Boys type of thing. Suicide Boys has some really good songs. Ghostmane has a couple songs that I really like. His newer stuff, Kali Yuga, I think is my favorite song by him. I know he's kind of a love-hate kind of figure, but I don't know. I think it sounds cool. So not super into rap, but the rap that I like really well, and I have a lot of respect for the genre. There you go. When can we see you do some Varamia? Oh, I want to do a playthrough of glioblastoma so bad, but I'm just having trouble finding the time. You know, I'm restructuring a lot of my life right now to find time to do things like this. So I'm hoping in the next couple months to get a Viramia vocal playthrough out. But first, I have to do the Infinite Annihilator vocal playthrough or cover. So hopefully soon. I was wondering if you could give a little more insight into high screams. I have an easy time with growling, but high screams baffle me. Focus on making your nose buzz and starting with tight vowel shapes. I feel like a lot of people who start with lows, they get very used to this position. Like all that type of stuff. And they think that they have to pull that sound up into their head. They have to pull that sound up into their head. It's not how it works. So you want to have a buzzy nose, like that, right there. And then you want to start your highs when you're learning with like e, y, you see how my lips are kind of tight like this? Start there. And, you know, don't think of it. A lot of people, they approach it as their highs are a modified low. You kind of need to think of them as a different beast, I find. Also, like, don't think of them as being hard, just different. Oftentimes, things are difficult for us because we put mental roadblocks where there shouldn't be any. I know that's kind of vague, but those would be my tips for you. Have you always known how to properly sing, scream, growl, or has it been a constant work in progress? Well, I've already in this video talked about how my screaming started out absolutely terrible. Singing, just to be kind of transparent, I always kind of had an easy time picking it up. Of course, you know, I had to learn things too. I didn't start off with a really good singing voice. In fact, even now, I mean, I think my singing voice is pretty good, but there's still areas for me to improve too. But yeah, it was just kind of easy for me to pick up. But I wouldn't say I was like born with it either. It's something I had to practice. And as far as being 30 and still constantly learning, I don't think anybody's done. Like, I don't think anybody's done learning. I mean, even me, I know a lot about metal vocals, but I don't know how to do the whistle scream, and I would really love to learn. So, you know, sometimes people get self-conscious about the fact that they're still learning, and the truth is that if you ever stop learning, then you're kind of cutting yourself short. So, hopefully that helps. How long have you been doing vocals, and who's your favorite vocalist? So, metal vocals, just in their entirety, I've been doing for them for probably about 9 or 10 years. Officially with Kardashev, 6 or 7. Favorite vocalist, yeah, like I've mentioned, Niche, Johnny Davey, Dickie Allen. Those 3 come to mind that I like quite a bit. What was the first scream or harsh vocal that really got you? All That Remains 6. I've never heard that. I'll have to check it out. So for me, it was specifically the pig, the pig squeals or pig vocals in Entombment of a Machine. I talked about that song already in this video, but when he's like, break free, break for us, break free, us. I don't remember the lyrics, but that, because that's how they used to be back in the day. Nowadays, they're much higher pitched and like, like squealy. Back then, they were more like, that's kind of where they were. And I heard that, and I was like, humans can do that? And I just listened to that scream on repeat on the bus ride home from school. So there it is. Job for a Cowboy, Entombment of a Machine. Big deal in my metal journey. When did I first get into metal? I mean, I was into metal back in like 6th and 7th grade. And then a little after that with like Disturbed and System of a Down and stuff. I would consider that a type of metal. And then Metallica was my favorite band for a long time. I still like Metallica pretty well, not as much as I used to. But then my sister brought home, I can't remember which album, but a Necrophagist CD. And I remember listening to, I believe it was 7 or Diminished to Be. I can't remember which song, but hearing it and being like, that's some devil shit. That's evil. And then I kept listening to it. So yeah. It was probably Necrophagist and Job for a Cowboy that really pulled me in. Great question. 2 questions. I see Final Fantasy games and a D&D book on your desk in these videos. What games are you into right now? So starting this, ever since starting this vocal coaching thing and the channel, I don't really have time to play video games anymore, which is unfortunate. But this is also really fun, so I'm not like mad about it. So I haven't really been into a game in a while. I would say my 2 favorite games on the PS4, which is my primary gaming system, would be God of War and Marvel's Spider-Man. Those games are really good. I recently bought Control. I tried to start playing it, but I just didn't have the time, so I'm just going to wait till things level out. And then after Control, I want to get into Death Stranding. A lot of people are saying it's really slow and desolate, and it's just a lot of walking, and I'm like, that sounds awesome. That sounds so cool. And then the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I know it's like really controversial. I don't know why. I think it looks amazing, so I'm excited about that. And can you point fans to a good resource for an intro to metal vocals and performing them safely? Additionally, what damage can you do to your throat? Great question. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm trying to make this channel. I'm trying to make, because not everybody can afford, or not everybody has the time to jump into lessons, and I get that, but I also don't want safety to be like stuck in an ivory tower. Like, so I would say I'm trying to make this channel as educational on safety as possible. And so I try to work that into my reaction videos. Another great resource for people who are into fry screaming, Melissa Cross, her DVD is Zen of Screaming. She's more into fry than false chord. But her basic concepts of like safety and distortion and things like that are really helpful. I will say that I have worked with some students who learned fry vocals from those DVDs, and then they come to me and they have a hard time switching to false chord. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't get those DVDs. I think that you should search every avenue you can to improve, but just be aware that if you want to do false chord, maybe supplement that at the same time so you're not sort of streamlining one thing. But I mean, I've watched those DVDs. She's great. I would love to meet her. She's cool as hell. What damage can you do to your throat if you don't scream properly? Well, I just got to give a disclaimer that like I'm not a doctor, so I can't anytime somebody has damage, I haven't worked with anybody who has damage yet, but if you were to have damage, I would just point you to your doctor. But you can rupture your blood vessels in your vocal folds, which is painful and causes a lot of swelling. You can get basic vocal fold swelling, which, it's just like anything else. If it's swollen, you have to take a break. You can get there are vocal nodules, which are like buildup of calluses, and those are like the big bad one, because your vocal folds are not going to close properly, and so speaking and singing is going to be very difficult. And then you can get vocal fold like polyps, and those are like a pus-filled blister, and those are really bad too. Oftentimes with those, you're gonna have to go get them cut off with surgery. Now, vocal fold nodules and vocal polyps, they come from continual bad use, but that's not an excuse to ignore bad behaviors today, because those will compound, and then next thing you know, you'll have some problems. So those are the basic ones. You can also tear a vocal fold like a piece of paper. But that you would have to be pushing really hard. I think that's what happened to Adele. I don't remember. Anyway, next question. How good do you think someone needs to be before they start looking for a band to join? Okay, so here's the thing. I do not think you have there. I don't think there's any level of good that you have to be to jam with your friends. I would say if you've never screamed before, but your friends want to jam together, as long as they're going to be understanding that you're a beginner, just do it. It's basically what I did. In fact, when I joined Kardashev, our bassist at the time, Chris, after our first jam session, he said to Nico, "I don't know if this guy is going to work out." And truthfully, I don't blame him. Like, I would have thought the same thing. But, I just kept trying and kept learning and kept improving, and eventually I was good. So I don't think you should be like, oh, I'm not good enough to be jamming out with my friends. You should think of it as, this is a great opportunity for me to practice in real time what I want to do. Now, if you're going to start playing shows and recording vocals, then I do, like, if you're going to take it just from like jamming to actually performing and putting some music out there, I do think that you need to have at least a decent, it would benefit you, sorry, I'm stuttering, to be able to get through a 30-minute set, and to have some consistency in your vocals. Reason being, your performance will be better, and also studio time costs money. And so the quicker you can get in there, hit your vocals, and get out, the more money you're going to save if the engineer is doing an hourly rate for you and your bandmates. So just to jam, who cares how good you are? Playing shows and everything, just make sure you can get through a 30-minute set, and afterwards your voice isn't hoarse, and you're good to go. You don't have to be a pro. Just know how to not hurt yourself, that's all. What do you think about people who say that metal screaming is just random sounds? What do I think about them as people? Can't really make a judgment call of their whole personality based on one viewpoint. But what do I think about their opinion? Well, somewhat understandable. Because if you don't like the sound, you're not going to invest a lot of time into understanding it, and so you're going to be left from a point of misinformation. But sometimes it's true. Like, let's be honest. In a lot of metal, the words might not sound like what you're doing. You might go like, and you're like, oh yeah, that was easy breezy, and it's like, was it really? I think that, and I've had these conversations with people before, what I explain to them when they say like, oh, well, you can't even understand what they're saying, I don't hit them back with an argument or a jab. I just say, well, that's true. First and foremost, I validate what they're saying. I say, that's true. You can't always understand what you're saying. Metal has, for a lot of vocalists, been about like emotional honesty as well as like raw primal emotion. And so sometimes if you want to get an aggressive message across, or you want to let off some steam, yelling and screaming is going to be the best way to do it. And the goal is to release those emotions and to express those emotions, not necessarily to have like a clear, concise set of lyrics. And they might not understand that. That's fine, but at least you've done your best. And then as far as tapping into like the primal thing, I know that part of the reason I like screaming is because, to me, obviously we're using techniques that are not dated thousands of years, but to me, like when our super far back ancestors were excited, what did they do? They held up spears and grunted and hunt mammoths and stuff. So to me, screaming is like a really age-old thing that in many of us is really deep-seated, and so we're kind of letting out and releasing a side of us that we don't normally get to do that with. But generally, the best way to handle those conversations is just to be like, well, it's not for everybody, and then change the subject. Because that one person who's getting on your case about metal vocals, you probably have a lot of things that you would have in common with them. And it's just best to talk about those things. You don't have to convince people to like metal. Just find common ground somewhere else. What's the hardest to achieve vocal style? If you mean just metal, I've found that varies for a lot of different people. Some people, they have absolutely no problem with lows. Other people just can't seem to do it. Same thing for highs. I would say probably it just depends. I think like the real niche things like whistle screams and stuff, those are probably hard because there's not a lot of resource out there on the internet for how to do it. Now, if we're talking just vocal style, in my experience, I think singing can be more difficult than screaming. Because if I go like, there's no pitch involved, right? Now, I'm not jabbing screaming. Obviously, I love screaming, but there's like, I'm not having to maintain a pitch. But if I go, ah, you know, the onset, the offset, the pitch, the vibrato, the soft palate, the jaw, the tone. There's so many things in there that could be not pleasing to hear. So I think singing, personal opinion, I think singing is harder than screaming, but both take a lot of skill and are worthy of respect. So that's that. I think this is the last one. We're getting close to it. What is your favorite band? For a long time, it was a band called Me Without You. That's a really good one. I really like Sufjan Stevens. He's amazing. As far as metal bands, probably Lantloss. Lantloss is probably my favorite metal band. They're amazing. All their albums. Their newest album, well, it's not that new, but their most recent album is like mostly post-rock. But still, fantastic. Check them out. Oh! And then there are like our local dudes. Holy Fawn, really amazing. Hollow Oceans, he's not local. He's on the other side of the country, but he's really good too. There are a lot of bands out there that they're not necessarily like super huge, although Holy Fawn just got pretty big. But there are a lot of bands out there that just because they don't have 10 million followers, they're amazing. So yeah, I would say those right now are what are in my heavy rotation. Also, there's Wardruna and Heilung or Heilung. Those two are really good too. All right, and that was the AMA. Holy cow, that video is almost an hour long. I do not blame you if you don't watch the whole thing, but if you do, I appreciate it. Also, a lot of these questions came to me either through YouTube or versions of them came through to me through our Facebook community page. So make sure to come check that out. A lot of fun discussion going on there. And as I mentioned in the other video, I'm working on a lot of cool behind-the-scenes stuff to make Cardivox Academy big and shiny. So check it out. Keep an eye open. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.